The moment the subway doors slammed shut, I knew something was wrong. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely, leaving the car in a suffocating dark that felt like a warning I never asked for. And right across from me, gripping the metal pole like he was anchoring himself to the world, stood the stranger whose face would not leave my mind for days to come. I didn't know his name then. I only knew the outline of his shoulders, the sharp cut of his jaw, the way his eyes seemed too intense to belong to a random commuter on a Thursday night. Later, I would learn he was Anderson. Later, I would learn everything. But in that moment, in the stale darkness, all I felt was the strange, electric pull of being trapped with someone who made fear feel like anticipation. A soft emergency light blinked on, barely bright enough to paint the space with an eerie blue. Anderson looked up, his brow furrowed, lips parted like he was about to speak, but changed his mind. "Not the best night to take the subway," I muttered, mostly to break the silence clawing at us. He huffed a breath, not quite a laugh, but close. "Depends," he said. "Some nights the subway ruins everything. Some nights it surprises you." I didn't know what that meant, but the answer lingered in my chest longer than it should have. I shifted my weight, adjusting the strap of my messenger bag. "I'm Aaron, by the way, since we might be here a while." He nodded. "Anderson." His voice was lower than I expected, the kind that stuck like velvet, even in the cold air. The train shuddered violently. I stumbled forward, bumping into him, my hand brushing his chest before I caught myself. His heartbeat was fast. Maybe mine was too. "Sorry," I said, though I wasn't sure I meant it. "It's fine," he replied quietly. We stood there, inches apart, the humming silence of the stalled car surrounding us like a cocoon. Passengers at the other end complained loudly, calling out for updates, but everything felt distant. All I saw was him. The emergency speaker crackled overhead. "Attention passengers. We are experiencing an unexpected malfunction. Please remain calm. Assistance is on the way." A chorus of groans erupted. Anderson let out a slow breath and leaned back against the cold steel wall. "So," he said lightly, "what brings you to the underground tonight, Aaron? Running from something or running toward something?" I smiled despite myself. "Maybe both. That sounds complicated." "It usually is." Another pause. Another flicker of the dim lights. "What about you?" I asked. "Why are you here tonight?" He hesitated. A real hesitation, the kind that says the truth isn't easy. His fingers tapped the metal pole once, twice, a nervous rhythm. "Trying to clear my head," he finally said, "before it explodes." I studied him for a moment. There was something about him that felt bruised. Not broken, just carrying too much weight for someone his age. He couldn't have been older than 26. "You okay?" I asked softly. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quieter. "I don't know." And that was the moment, the exact breath in time, when I stopped seeing him as a stranger. Another jolt rattled the car, and a few passengers stumbled. Someone cursed. Someone else demanded a refund from no one in particular. Anderson's hand shot out, steadying himself on the pole. "Are you scared of the dark?" he asked suddenly. "What? No." "Then what are you scared of?" I blinked. The question hit harder than it should have. That's a weird thing to ask a guy trapped in a subway with you. He smirked. A small, crooked thing that made the emergency light seem brighter. "I like weird. You barely know me. I'm observant." "Oh yeah? What have you observed?" He leaned in slightly, not enough to invade my space, but enough to feel the heat of him. "You keep clicking your thumb against your fingers. Nervous habit." I glanced down at my hand. Damn, I thought that was subtle. "Not to me." I swallowed. My mouth felt dry. "And you?" I asked. "Any nervous habits I should know about?" He tilted his head. "I run my mouth when I don't know what else to do. And right now," he said softly, "I'm trying not to overthink everything." I felt something shift in the air, a small, invisible crack in the wall between us. The train creaked again. The lights brightened for a second, revealing the softness of his features, the curve of his lashes, the faint stubble shadowing his cheek. He looked away quickly, like he wasn't used to being seen. A message buzzed on my phone. "Where are you? Dinner at 8? I ignored it. Anderson noticed. "Someone waiting for you." "Yeah," I said. but not someone who matters. He looked at me for a long moment, not judging, just understanding in a way that made my chest ache. You ever feel like you're living a life that doesn't belong to you? He asked. All the time. He nodded slowly, as if that answer alone loosened something in him. A kid at the far end started crying. His mother shushed him gently. The air grew thick, the kind of stale underground heaviness that made every sound louder, every silence sharper. Anderson checked the empty window, but all that reflected back was darkness. We're deep underground, he murmured. That's why the signal's dead. I raised a brow. Didn't peg you as someone who knows about subway infrastructure. Didn't peg myself as someone who'd be explaining it to a cute guy in a train malfunction either. My pulse kicked hard. Cute. He froze, realizing what he'd admitted. I mean, forget I said that. No, I said gentle. I won't. He exhaled shakily. The vulnerability in that breath was louder than any confession. The emergency lights flickered again, painting tiny shadows under his eyes. He rubbed the back of his neck. Look, he said, am not usually this. Honest, I offered. Exposed, he corrected. I understood that more than he knew. It's okay. We're strangers. It's easier with strangers. That's exactly the problem, he whispered. I don't want to forget this as soon as the doors open. My throat tightened. Maybe we won't. Another voice came over the speakers. Attention passengers. Assistance is delayed. Please remain patient. Groans again, but this time, I barely heard them. Anderson's shoulder brushed mine. A casual touch, accidental maybe, but it lingered longer than it should have. His scent was clean, faintly citrus, the type that stayed in your memory long after you stepped away. When the train shook again, his hand shot toward mine. Instinct, reflex, his fingers catching my wrist. He didn't let go. Sorry, he said, but his voice was too soft to believe it. You don't have to be. So he didn't pull away. We stood there, two strangers holding on to each other in the middle of a broken subway car, like the world had paused on purpose just to push us into the same breath of space. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time felt strange underground. What were you clearing your head from? I asked quietly. He kept his eyes forward. A mess I made. Bad mess. The kind that ruins things, he said. The kind you don't fix with apologies. I waited, not pushing him, just letting the silence sit between us until he chose to fill it. It's my brother, he finally said. We had a fight. Actually, more like a shouting match where I said things I shouldn't have. Things he didn't deserve. That sounds human. Sounds stupid, he corrected. Especially since he's the only family I've got left. His voice cracked just enough that I heard the truth behind it. Family is hard, I said softly. He laughed under his breath. Maybe for some. For me, it's impossible. He rubbed his palms together, like he could scrub away whatever memory haunted him. What about you? He asked suddenly. You running from something too? I hesitated for a moment before answering. A relationship that's been over for months. I just haven't admitted it yet. You don't love them? I don't even like who I am when I'm with them. He nodded as if he understood too well. That's worse. Yeah, I whispered. It is. The lights blinked violently, then steadied at a slightly brighter glow. Someone cheered. Another person clapped sarcastically. But the car was still trapped, still motionless. The brightness let me see him more clearly. The faint freckles on his cheekbones, the tiny scar near his eyebrow, the tiredness tucked under his eyes. But there was something else too, a softness that contrasted sharply with his guarded posture. He caught me looking. What? Nothing, I said quickly. Just noticing things. Observant, he teased. Maybe I learned from someone. He grinned, a real one this time, unguarded, lighting up his face like sunrise breaking underground. And then the ground beneath us rumbled. The car jolted forward an inch. A collective gasp rippled through the passengers. We might be moving, Anderson said, straightening. But then, a screech. A violent shake. And everything plunged back into darkness. Someone screamed. Metal clanged. The car rocked hard enough that Anderson grabbed my arm, pulling me toward him before I could lose balance. My chest collided with his. His breath hit my cheek. His hand stayed on my arms, firm, steady, anchoring me to him. "You okay?" he asked urgently. "Yeah," I managed. But when he didn't let go, when his fingers tightened like he wasn't ready to release the moment, I knew something inside me had shifted forever. The darkness felt less terrifying with him so close. Maybe that was the real danger. Because in the middle of a stalled subway car, surrounded by strangers and fear and metal groans, all I could think was, I don't want this moment to end. And from the way Anderson's breath hitched, I knew he felt it too. The lights buzzed back to life, weaker than before, as if they were fighting for their last breath. Anderson slowly loosened his grip on my arms, but his hands didn't fall away immediately. They lingered, hovering, like he was caught between instinct and intention. "I thought the whole car was about to tip over," I said. "Yeah," he murmured. Felt like the universe shaking us by the shoulders. Maybe we needed it. He looked at me, really looked, and something unspoken passed between us, heavier than fear, yet strangely comforting. People around us were muttering, complaining, calling out in frustration, but their noise felt distant, blurred at the edges of my awareness. All my senses were tuned to the man standing inches away, breathing like he carried worlds inside him. He ran a hand through his hair, pushing it back from his forehead. The movement exposed his face fully, the raw honesty in his expression. "I don't usually talk to strangers," he said. "Especially not like this." I smiled faintly. "Me neither." "So why now?" he asked. I didn't have an easy answer, but I had the truth. Because it feels safe. His eyebrows lifted a little, like he didn't expect that. "Safe?" he repeated under his breath, as if the word tasted different coming from me. I can't remember the last time anyone made me feel that. Before I could respond, the overhead speaker crackled again. "Attention passengers. The malfunction has been located. We will resume movement shortly. Thank you for your patience." Some people cheered. A few sighed in relief. But my chest tightened instead. The moment the train moved, this strange, suspended pocket of time would collapse, and the real world, the one waiting outside, would pull us apart. Anderson seemed to feel it too. His fingers tapped restlessly against the pole, his eyes drifting toward the emergency exit door like he was already bracing for the return to daylight and expectations. "So this is ending," he said quietly. "It doesn't have to," I answered before thinking. He swallowed. "Aaron, don't say it," I whispered. "Not yet." His jaw flexed, as if he was trying to hold words in place. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." He huffed a breath. "Like what?" I met his eyes. "That you're hurting. That you feel alone more than you admit. That you're kind even when you're scared. That you notice things others don't." His lips parted slowly. I didn't think anyone saw me like that. Maybe they haven't been looking. The car jerked softly, the brakes releasing. People shifted, adjusting their bags, preparing for the train to move again. Anderson looked down at his hands. "I don't want this to end either," he said quietly. "But once those doors open, life keeps going. And I'm not sure I know how to take something like this with me." I took a step closer. "Then let me make it easier." He lifted his gaze. "We don't have to know what this is right now," I said. "We don't have to label it or fix it or decide anything tonight. Just don't walk away the second the train stops. Stay, even if it's only for 5 more minutes." His breath hitched, barely, but enough that I noticed. 5 minutes, he echoed. "Yeah." He shook his head, a small, disbelieving smile tugging at his mouth. "You're dangerous, Aaron." "Why?" "Because you make me hope for things I'm not used to hoping for." The train lurched forward. Slowly, painfully, but undeniably moving this time. The fluorescent lights flickered back in full, bathing the car in harsh brightness. Our moment of darkness, our pocket of suspended time, was closing. Passengers straightened up, grabbing onto poles as the train began its slow crawl down the tracks. Someone turned music back on. Someone else made a call. The world was returning to normal. But nothing in me felt normal anymore. Anderson stood still, watching the blur of tunnel walls pass outside the window. His expression shifted, thoughtful, conflicted, like he was trying to memorize something he didn't want to lose. "What are you thinking?" I asked. That I wish I'd met you on any other night, he said, when everything wasn't falling apart. Maybe it had to fall apart, I said softly, for you to be here with me. He rubbed his thumb along the edge of his palm, that nervous habit he'd mentioned. You make things sound simple. No, I said. I make them sound possible. The train picked up a little more speed, still slower than usual, but no longer threatening to stop again. The overhead display flickered back on, showing the next station approaching in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I felt the countdown like a pulse inside my ribs. Anderson's breathing changed, steadier, but heavy in a different way, like he was preparing himself to choose between two futures when the doors opened. Aaron, he said, almost a whisper, can I tell you something without you thinking I'm crazy? Yeah, tell me. He kept his eyes forward, watching the dark track outside. When the lights went out earlier when the car shook, I reached for you without thinking. Before I even knew your name. I don't do that. I don't reach for people. My heart felt too big for my chest. But you reached for me. Yes. He finally turned to look at me. And I don't know what that means yet. But I know I don't regret it. The announcement chimed overhead. Next stop, Brookstone Avenue. My mind replayed the words he'd just spoken. I wanted to hold on to them. I wanted him to hold on to them. When the brakes began to slow the train, Anderson exhaled sharply, a breath of acceptance or fear, I couldn't tell. Maybe both. He shifted closer, so close our shoulders brushed. If I walk off this train alone, he murmured, I'm going to pretend this never happened. Because that's what I do. I seal things off. You don't have to, I said. But I do, he insisted, his voice cracking slightly. It's how I survive things. I touched the back of his hand. Lightly, carefully. Then don't walk off alone. He looked at our hands for a long, long second. Aaron, he whispered, are you sure? Yes, I said without hesitation. More sure than I've been about anything in months. He closed his eyes briefly, as if letting those words steady him. Around us, the car was shifting, passengers picking up their bags, moving toward the doors. The train screeched softly as it slowed into the station. Anderson's voice trembled when he spoke again. What if I mess this up too? You won't. You don't know that. I don't need to, I said. I just need you to try. His chest rose and fell in a shaky breath. The train doors clattered, then slid open with a sharp metallic hiss. Light from the platform spilled into the car, bright enough to wipe out the dim intimacy we'd shared. People began moving out quickly, eager to escape the delay. But Anderson didn't move. He stood rooted to the spot, staring at the open doorway like it was the edge of a cliff. I waited. He swallowed hard. 5 minutes, he whispered. You said 5 minutes. I meant it. He turned to me, eyes filled with something vulnerable and frightening and hopeful all at once. Then he stepped forward. Not toward the platform. Toward me. He stopped right in front of me, close enough that I could see the faint tremble in his hands. The platform noise faded into the background, a blur of rushing footsteps and irritated passengers. But inside the subway car, everything felt suspended again, like the world was waiting to hear what he would choose. Aaron, he said, voice low, if I stay even for 5 minutes, I don't think I'll be able to pretend this didn't happen. Good, I whispered. I don't want you to. He let out a breath that sounded like surrender, or relief, maybe both. Passengers squeezed past us, stepping around our stillness. A woman muttered something about blocking the way, but neither of us moved. Anderson was staring at me like he was learning my face from scratch, carefully, deliberately, like he expected this moment to burn itself into him. He nodded once, almost imperceptibly. I'll stay, he said. And the words echoed inside me like a promise. But as soon as he made that choice, the head conductor appeared at the far end of the car, walking from passenger to passenger. Last call, he said. This car will be temporarily closed. Everyone off. I froze. Anderson's shoulders tensed. His eyes flicked toward the doors, then back to me. They're clearing it. Yeah, I said quietly. They are. He clenched his jaw, thinking. Then, come with me, he said. My chest tightened. Where? Just off the train, he said. Anywhere but here. If I walk out alone, I'm going to go home and shut down again. I know myself. But if you're beside me, even for a little while, maybe I won't run from this. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. Okay, I said. I'll come with you. We stepped off the train together. The doors slid shut behind us, sealing off the dim blue light, the rattling metal, the strange pocket of fate where we'd met. The platform was wide and brightly lit, cleaner than most downtown stations. People dispersed quickly, some running for the next train, others heading toward the escalators. But Anderson didn't move. He stood at the edge of the platform, staring down the stretch of empty track like it held answers he'd spent too long avoiding. You okay? I asked softly. He nodded, though his breath was unsteady. Just trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing. You're not doing it alone, I reminded him. He turned his head slightly, enough to meet my eyes. Something softened in his expression. That's the part that scares me. We walked toward a quiet corner of the platform, away from the rush of commuters. The overhead announcements echoed, arrivals, delays, reminders about safety. Normal things. Things that didn't belong to the world inside my chest anymore. We stopped near a tiled wall, and Anderson slid down until he was sitting, his back against the cold ceramic. He motioned to the empty space beside him. I sat. For a while, we didn't speak. We just listened to the thrum of trains in other tunnels, the faint rumble underfoot. His knee brushed mine, not intentionally, just lightly enough to feel real. Finally, he exhaled. My brother's name is Lucas. I turned to him. We grew up depending on each other, he said. My mom left before I turned 10. My dad, well, he was there physically, but not really. Lucas was the one who made sure I ate, that I got to school, that I didn't drown under everything. His gaze dropped to his hands. But last year, he got married. And suddenly, he had a new life, new responsibilities. And I kept feeling like I was losing him, like he didn't have time for me anymore. That must have been hard, I said gently. That's the problem, Anderson murmured. It wasn't just hard. It made me bitter. I said things I shouldn't have, accused him of abandoning me, told him he chose his wife over his own brother. He rubbed his palms together, shame tightening his voice. He didn't deserve any of that. He's been trying so hard to keep us close. But I couldn't see it. Families change, I said. But that doesn't mean they stop loving you. He swallowed. I know. But when the train broke down, I was on my way to apologize. And all I could think about in the dark was how much I'd messed up. And yet, I said, nudging him lightly, you're still here. That says something. He looked at me like he wasn't sure he deserved the kindness. Why are you doing this? What? Being good to me? You don't even know me. I smiled softly. I'm not being good to you. I'm just being honest with you. And maybe that's what you needed tonight. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, my turn, I said. You told me about your brother. I'll tell you about the relationship I'm trying to leave. He leaned slightly closer, bracing himself. We were together for almost 3 years, I said. At first everything felt right. Safe. Like I found someone who made the world make sense. I paused. But somewhere along the way, we started becoming two people living parallel lives. Close, but never touching. Anderson's eyes softened. We weren't hurting each other, I continued. We were just disappearing from each other. Slowly, quietly. And I kept convincing myself it was fine. That it was normal. That maybe love just fades. And does it? He asked. I took a breath. I think love changes. But what we had, it didn't change. It evaporated. He nodded, like he understood that more deeply than he wanted to admit. So when I got stuck in that subway car, I said, my biggest fear wasn't the dark or the shaking or the possibility we'd be there all night. It was realizing that my life has felt empty for longer than I've been willing to face. He whispered, you're braver than you think, Aaron. I don't feel brave. You are, he said, looking straight at me. You could have ignored me, you know. You could have stayed quiet. But you didn't. Neither did you. He let out a small breath, half laugh, half disbelief. Yeah, guess we're both a little reckless. Or, I said, a little hopeful. He leaned his head back against the wall, eyes closing briefly. Hope hasn't been kind to me. It doesn't have to be kind, I whispered. It just has to be honest. His eyes opened, and he studied me again, that same careful, searching look he gave me in the subway car. He shifted slightly closer. Aaron, he said softly, Do you believe things happen for a reason? I believe we choose the reasons afterward, I said. But I believe moments matter. And this one feels like it matters. He nodded, his throat bobbing as he swallowed. I don't know where this goes, he said. I don't even know if I'm ready for anything. But I know I don't want to walk away from you yet. I felt something warm bloom slowly in my chest. You don't have to walk away, I murmured. Not tonight. His breathing slowed. A soft, tentative quiet settled between us, the kind that wasn't empty but full of possibility, full of the weight of everything unsaid. Then, unexpectedly, he said, do you want to go somewhere? Anywhere above ground. I need air. Real air. Yeah, I said. Let's get out of here. He stood first, offering his hand. I took it. His fingers curled around mine, hesitant but certain. And when we walked toward the exit together, I felt the weight of the underground fall away behind us.